Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. This episode is brought to you by Shipsalot. Shipsalot is an e-commerce fulfillment company based in the U.S. that works with a limited number of high-volume Shopify brands. If you own a Shopify store and ship more than 500 orders per month, contact us via info@shipsalot.com for a free fulfillment assessment, which includes Shopify fulfillment troubleshooting, evaluating postage spend, and other important fulfillment pain points. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, my name's Nick. Welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. And I'm delighted to have you on your first ever episode. And what a great series to drop in the middle of as well. We are talking about fulfillment and we're talking about shipping and a whole range of other things as well. We're obviously in the middle of this series and we've got a few other bits and pieces going on that I want to flag to you guys as well. If you want to reach out to us and ask any questions about this topic we're talking about fulfillment, operations, and back office, as I like to call it, things that are going on that aren't necessarily visible on the website and that customers aren't necessarily aware of, but are happening for their benefit, please reach out to us through winningwithshopify.com. You can fill out any of the forms on our website. There's a ask a question, a request, and a few other bits and pieces. I've been replying to quite a lot of them recently. I've carved out a bit of time in my diary every week just to reply to as many queries as I can. Trying to give people advice on CRO and how to develop your website and all that sort of stuff as well. So feel free to use that resource if you want. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by an amazing merchant. I'm very excited to talk to these guys and find out more about what's going on. We're joined by Marc, who is the founder of Stuga. So Marc, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here today.
Great stuff. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And as we ask all of our guests when we first start each episode, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Marc, and a little bit about Stuga as well?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO. Started the business back in 2018. We're a young business, but we've had a lot of experience doing a lot of different things over the past 5 years, I would say. But yeah, in essence, we are a direct-to-consumer e-commerce hardwood flooring company and specializing in European-made and Scandinavian-produced wood floors.
Nice. And obviously wood flooring, we're talking about fulfillment and shipping. Wood flooring is not a light item to ship, is it?
No, it is not easy whatsoever. The shipping from an LTL perspective is really challenging. Our products are long, they're heavy. If they get damaged, they're expensive to replace. So there's a lot of challenges in regards to that. But we've learned a lot over the past 5 years. So I feel like we've overcome some challenges and broken through some barriers. So.
Nice. And I guess in a way as well, if it's difficult for you to do part of it, but you've nailed that in terms of, I know it's probably refinements you can make, but certainly in terms of getting products out, get them shipped, it must make it more difficult for a competitor just to suddenly pop up and start targeting you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about it, right? When I started, I had a business before this, which was an in-person business. So I was working with flooring contractors and home builders and designers in Denver. And then now we're based in Austin, and I moved the business down to Austin, Texas. And just inherent in building, it's hard. You're dealing with massive supply chains. Timelines are crucial. Products get mismanufactured, and you're dealing with so many different parties. And if products get delayed, costs increase. So the idea of creating a business within this industry is hard, but also really interesting because it's hard for everyone. So it's not just hard for us, it's hard for anyone in the industry. And I think that the more you can spend some time in it and the more you can overcome some of those challenges, I think the better it is for us. And really the only way to get ahead is to just solve problems and work through the experiences and learn. And that's really what's set us apart, I think. It's taken us a long time to get here, but we have by no means arrived. I can tell you that. Yep. But we're learning and getting better. And so that's what it's all about.
Yeah, amazing. And there's a few points I'm going to come back to a little bit later, but I'd love to hear more about how you guys got the business started. So you mentioned you started in 2018, and obviously we all know what happened in 2020, which must have been an enormous curveball to you guys. Imagine you just got some traction. What's the story looking like for you guys? Like, how did you start out initially? Obviously, you had a bit of background with contractors, but in terms of getting that supply chain set up, getting the business off the ground, like what were some of those key steps you guys had to go through?
Yeah, I mean, my history is I used to, back in the day when I graduated from college, my first job was working for a Swedish hardwood flooring manufacturer
Mm.
and seller here in the US. And so I worked for them in the States for 4 years and then spent some time in Sweden working for them. I was a global product manager. And so I knew the global markets, I knew manufacturing really well, and I had a lot of experience within, the industry. And
Yep.
then just kind of hit a point in 2008 where I was just tired of working in the industry. I needed a change. So I came back to the States and bounced around for a bit and then ended up landing in tech sales and working and selling email marketing technologies. But over time, I still had contacts in the hardwood flooring industry and saw that the business hasn't changed at all. It was run by middlemen at the expense of the consumer.
Mm.
Direct consumer companies were popping up all throughout other industries, but flooring was still sitting there just waiting for someone to do something interesting with it. And
Yep.
so with my contacts, I just decided to start a side business, which was working with architects, designers, and builders locally, because I saw that there are a lot of beautiful homes, a lot of beautiful designs, but they weren't using beautiful products, in my opinion, or
Mm.
products that were well made, sustainably sourced, healthy for the home, all the things. And so just started talking to people and getting projects that way. Um, and we were essentially just doing project work, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and did that for some years, and then got to a point where I just realized that this is small potatoes, so to speak. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the bigger opportunity in my mind is e-commerce. There's no good way of buying a wood floor online, in my
Mm.
opinion. It just wasn't a beautiful experience. And so I just hired a neighbor of mine at the time who was a developer working for another email marketing company and had him build a Shopify site. And my idea at the time was, let's just put up a site and see what happens.
Yep.
No knowledge of fulfillment, no knowledge of anything other than let's just take the first step. And we did that, and nothing really happened with it until I had a friend of mine at the time who was actually a client in Denver who was pretty popular on Instagram, and she had my products in her home, and she posts about us on Instagram, and I'll never forget it because I was sitting with a friend of mine in Austin at one of my favorite pizza joints, and we were having dinner. My phone was sitting there, and my phone just starts, when you get an order on Shopify, it makes a cash register sound, the best sound ever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so my phone just starts buzzing like crazy. And I'm looking
Yeah.
at it, and we're getting order after order after order. And the concept at the time was free samples. Let's just make it easy. We're going to show you what the
Yeah.
price is. We're going to allow you to order free samples, and we're just going to see what happens. And so we're getting all these orders at the time. And that was it was a crazy moment because it was this realization that oh wow, this is actually something interesting. People are responding to it.
Mm.
um, and I remember waking up the next day, calling my supplier because I didn't own anything at the time. We weren't doing any fulfillment. We were owning nothing. We were having our supplier send out samples.
Yep.
And I remember I called them, and we had no idea how to manage anything.
Mm.
We didn't know how to ship orders out. We didn't really know how to do anything. So it was a fire drill for a solid 48 hours, but we ended up
Yeah.
working through it. But it was just one of those things where you never know what's going to happen until you try it. And a lot of times, you think things are going to happen,
Mm.
and you've done all the research and you think it's a no-brainer, and then you do it and nothing happens. So I'm always of the school of, you have an idea, take a little bit of a step, reduce your risks, see what happens, test it out, and just
Mm.
continue to iterate off that. So that's kind of how it got rolling. And that was in the summer of 2018. So I think we sold one floor that year. Our revenue was, I don't know, $25,000 in 2018. We did
Yep.
420,000 in 2019. 2020 we did 2.5 million, which was crazy. The pandemic really helped us, which is a weird
Yeah.
thing to say, but it definitely helped
Yeah.
us.
No, you're not the first. Yeah.
2021 we did I think 5.2 million, and last year we did 6.7 million. So fast growth, a ton of mistakes, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what a journey. I mean, there's so many different things I want to pick out of this and talk about. I think the first one is, I mean, talking about USPs, We've had quite a few brands approach us who are starting out on Shopify, and we look at their site and we're like, there's no reason to buy from you. There's no trust. You don't have good fulfillment. Your products are too expensive. You don't have any reviews yet. One of the first things you said then was basically your frustrations. I can't buy flooring online. People aren't ethically sourcing them. There's a whole series of USPs. From a marketing perspective, and obviously the influencer massively helped, but I'm sure that only went so far. You must have done a huge amount more post that with marketing and obviously a background in marketing and email. But how much stronger do you think it makes the business having those USPs in terms of stories to tell customers, reasons to buy on site versus a company that don't? I know the obvious answer, but yeah, I mean, how did you guys tackle that? How did you choose which USPs to run with, which angles to go down? How did you learn?
I mean, we had two things that were going for us. One, we have some of the best products that you can sell in the market. So our product was just amazing. It looks beautiful. It's well made. When you get it in your hands, you just know it's really good quality. And there's something around the Scandinavian design story that's really interesting and resonates with a lot of customers. So that was the first thing. And I knew the product so well. So I just knew that if we could get it in people's hands, and that was the whole method behind free samples. And then the second thing was our pricing. We were a direct consumer company. So we were giving you a better product at a better price than an inferior product that you could get in person. So off the bat, we had two really big selling points. There's a bunch of other things around that, but those were the two main things that allowed us to at least get noticed and get people to think about us and start the conversation. And it was a really simple model because since I knew the product so well, we had a 800 number on the site. Actually, in the beginning, it wasn't an 800 number, it was my cell phone. And so people could just call directly and start asking questions. So that gave me the ability to talk to people with my knowledge. I knew the industry really well. I knew our products really well. And I had a lot of sales experience in tech. So I understood the whole process of selling. And so I think that was to my advantage. Totally non-scalable, right? But it was a great opportunity to learn what our customers wanted and needed and what they were asking for. And then that's the most important thing that I think that we did in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful, actually, the talking direct. I'm yet to meet a founder or somebody who started a Shopify store that's going very successfully, and your numbers are phenomenal. I mean, looking at the growth, I think there's nobody listening right now who's like, that's not enough, or I wouldn't be happy with that. But having that ability to talk direct to customers, you must be able to ask so many more questions than you can find out on a spreadsheet or from your customer service team, or even worse, outsourcing it to another company. You must be able to ask things like, sorry, what kind of room have you got at the moment? What's the moisture in the room? Because that's going to affect the wood type you use. Or, I don't know much about flooring myself, but there must have been so many more things you could learn very quickly to then go, right, we need to change this product a bit. Our marketing needs to change a little bit. Or actually, I'm finding more niches of audiences who are doing certain projects that we're super relevant to, which then starts to build out little marketing campaigns.
Yeah, I think it exposed kind of the third major advantage that we had at the time, which was we knew our products better than anyone else that was selling a hardwood floor. So if you walked into a flooring store, really anywhere, they're selling a lot of different products from a lot of different suppliers. They know a little bit about all of them, but not a lot, really. And I had practical experience, not just around product, but also installation and working with contractors. So I knew kind of the real world of what it took. And by working with really high-end custom home builders, we knew what a really high-end home demanded. But then we could take those tips and tricks and knowledge and then pass it on to the consumer who's building a home that is maybe half the price. And so the ability to guide the customer and really get rid of all the technical stuff that they're told all the time that's super confusing, and just speak very simply to them about something that actually matters was extremely powerful. And we still do that today. I mean, we have an 800 number on our site. If you call, someone will pick up and talk to you about the floors. A lot of times I'll pick up too, because I love talking to our customers and hearing what they have to say, but it's just invaluable. It's invaluable, right? And so it's a way to be national and almost personal and local at the same time, which is fun.
Yeah. I think, again, I'm going to emphasize that point to people listening. The fact that you've got this far. We've heard your numbers and your growth, and you're at sort of 6.7 million in the last year, which is huge in terms of where you were 2018, just 5 years ago. But for everyone listening, Mark's just said he still answers the phone and he still takes those calls. And I think if there's one of my clients asked me recently if there's one thing you could ask every client to do, and it wasn't directly answer the phone, but it was talk to customers, speak to them yourself, and ask them questions. I even said to one that every local order that goes out now that you just ship direct, you don't even use a courier, you've got your own vans, you take the order out, go with it. And when you get to the door, just say, look, I'm one of the directors or the owners of this business. Do you mind if I just ask you some questions while we're unloading? I'm going to help unload. Can I ask you some questions? Where are you putting this piece of furniture? What was it for? Was it at the right price point? And something else we've done recently as well, which would be interesting to get your thoughts on this, Mark, and then we'll talk about fulfillment and delivery a little bit more and warehousing. But one thing we've been doing for quite a few clients recently that's been really effective is we write out a list of like 20 questions, things we want to know, and specifically at the point where they've just purchased. So they've got their order confirmation page, and each person just gets one of these 20 questions. And the data you get from them is phenomenal. They're literally in the hot seat. They've just been accessing your website. So from a marketing point of view, you can ask them even little questions like, did you find everything you were looking for today? And don't give them a yes or no, give them a text box. Did you find what you're looking for today? And 99% of people say no. I've just purchased, but I didn't find this, this, and this. Well, that needs to be sent straight to customer service. You need to phone that customer immediately and just say, by the way, you said you couldn't find this particular vase on our website. Well, yeah, you can buy that vase. We have that vase in stock, or we have 4 of those. I'll email them across to you now. If you want to buy one, let me know. I can give you a 20% off and add it to your current order today. And you just increased average order value. And it all goes through Shopify still. But I'm assuming you guys must have, certainly with your kind of products, that, as you said, your knowledge level was higher than others. The amount you're talking to customers and still talk to customers, you must be obsessed with this kind of stuff with marketing, that information, that knowledge share.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes directly into our brand then, right? How do you have a brand if you don't know what your customers are concerned about and what problems that they're having that you're trying to solve? And so by doing that for 2 years and then going through a process of truly sitting down, working with a brand strategist and creating our brand and being intentional about it, that's where I feel if I would have gone back and done, if I would go back in time and think, what's one of the most important things that we did? It was that. It was creating a brand off of all the conversations we have had to present it back to the customer in a way that was really interesting and spoke to them and made sense for them. And, it was something that they can relate to. We didn't do that from the very beginning, but we did it after 2 years of operating. It was just extremely valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess part of it is a little bit chicken and egg, isn't it? Until you had that influencer moment where orders started coming in, you didn't actually have anyone to talk to. But that's part, as you say, you said earlier about starting something out and testing it. You minimize the risk and then go, certainly with e-commerce, how quickly can I get some orders in and just find out who these people are? Because I guess if you look at it this way, if you're a ship and you're just leaving the port, the quicker you know the direction, the less time you're going to spend wasting time and going into spaces you shouldn't be in. I think it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. I mean, our risk at the time was building a very basic Shopify site. It was not much money at all. And then it was up there. And then who knows what would happen with it, right? And if I would have thought of how I'm going to promote this thing and how we're going to get to 5 million, I would have no idea what to do. I wasn't even thinking that way. I was just thinking, let's just take the next step and see what happens, get feedback and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, let's rewind the clock. Fascinating to hear about the journey, and it's all really important, but we're here to talk a little bit about Ships a Lot and fulfillment and how you guys manage all of that. So let's go back to that. You're sitting in the restaurant, the phone starts going mad, and you hear that, and it's mad. I read a stat the other day that like 99% of people have muted the Shopify notification, but only after they've had that first burst, when they've had an Instagrammer or they've had like 6 orders in the same day, and it's like, all right, this is consistent now. I can turn the alerts off. I know we're making money now. It's just the same as the warehouse. What did you do next? I mean, you said you spoke to suppliers and they were sending out samples direct. How did that then start to change your trajectory when it came to fulfillment and stocking products and getting hold of products?
Well, we just saw, I mean, it wasn't scalable or feasible, wasn't efficient in so many ways because it just wasn't anything that they were used to. So immediately after that, we had to get all the orders out, and we did, but it wasn't presented in a beautiful way. It wasn't, the tracking was manually uploaded, all kinds of things that were just like, wow, this is crazy for me to do on my own. But so I started researching fulfillment, partners, and that's when I landed on Ships a Lot, and they've been with me since the very beginning. And so it was an opportunity for someone to handle it in a much more, sophisticated way. And it took so much of a load off of me because I don't give any value when I'm uploading things, right? But when I work with a partner like that, now they can take that off my hands and I can do the things I'm really good at. So Shipsalot allowed us to really scale in a way that, took us from, an order or two a day to, 20, 30 orders a day. And we're dealing with flooring, it's obviously beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you guys have got a slightly more complicated fulfillment attributes. You've mentioned some of the obvious things. It's a floor. It's heavy. It's bulky. You break something, as you say, it's expensive to replace. And of course, you're responsible on more levels. More levels than one. If that product doesn't arrive at the customer's house and is unloaded from the truck or truck or van or whatever into that person's home at the right time in a right way, so it's not damaged, etc. But also, there's all the other things around, like everybody's got a different sized space where they need a floor for. Plus, you've got to measure all the offcuts and make sure you've got the right amounts for this. So you guys must have a much more complicated fulfillment requirement where it's like, okay, this is the type of floor we need, this is the size we need, and how many of them we need, and the date we need them delivered. How sophisticated have you guys had to get over the years, going from just, you need this much, here it is, to actually giving the customer the options and advising the customer on, well, you're going to need this much flooring and here's how it's going to work?
Yeah, we have different fulfillment partners for different products. So basic fulfillment with samples and things like that is handled through Shipsalot because it's small pieces, free samples and things like that. So that's the really lead generation. And then with the floors itself, it's handled from our suppliers and we drop ship everything. And we went through a period of carry inventory, which I can talk about, and it was a total disaster for us.
I would love to hear that, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it briefly. I mean, we were growing so fast where at the time, our partners couldn't handle our logistics capacity. Picking and packing single orders for a customer is very different than putting a bunch of pallets on a truck and shipping it out. It actually takes a lot more time to pick and pack individual orders, and our partners weren't ready for that. We weren't ready for it at the time. So we were growing so fast and we hit this point and we said to ourselves, well, we can either stop growing and just be a boutique e-commerce company, or we can bring everything in-house so we can grow and scale. And at the time I made a decision that we needed to handle our own logistics. And, we were having
take out some warehouse space and try and get the software working yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Right. So we started carrying inventory, which we had never done. So that was a cash flow challenge, right? That we had never run into. We had to find space. We had to find partners who can pick and pack. We had to we had to find brokers that could give us the right rates with LTL shipments. We had to build technology systems so we can actually manage the orders in a way where our partner was just doing that before. So we had to do all those things. And we moved, the first 3 months of it was terrible. We had to move warehouses 3 times in 3 months.
Wow.
It was just a nightmare. And so we were learning, we were growing really fast. We were failing a lot. And raw material prices were going up. So our costs were going up. Freight rates were going up. And so all of that was a perfect storm that really put us in a very difficult situation that kind of culminated in the summer last year. And then we just went back to a model where we're drop shipping again. So like, obviously this isn't good for us. We can't do this. It's not our specialty. We're a sales and marketing company. Let's go back to what we're best at and find the right partners to handle these other things. The benefit of going through that challenge was we built a lot of amazing technological solutions that allow us to scale. It's just, it hurt a lot building it, cost a lot building it. But we made it through and we're so much better off because of it. But, and now we're, very well positioned to grow. But it was a really tough time. We learned a lot of lessons and, would we do it differently? Probably not, just because we learned so much and we had to build so much, but there are definitely things I would have paid more attention to while we were in the midst of it. But, that's what happens. You grow too fast, you get too excited about it, and then, it can almost kill you. So
yeah, absolutely. And I imagine, you don't even have to answer this if you don't want to, but I run a business myself, had a few different businesses over the years, and you talk about sleepless nights, and then you talk about, right, it's our third warehouse move in 3 months, and there's just, I mean, even with things like the pandemic going on, there's all the logistics of I can't even see anyone right now, and you've got things like this going on of like, yeah, where are we actually going to put stuff? So I guess one of the big questions to ask is that we talk a lot about these different levels, and we were talking about this before we started recording, talking about the different levels of product ownership or manufacturing ownership. So there's the one level of like drop shipping, which normally you'd put at the bottom. It's very insecure. You can't control it. They could turn around tomorrow and say, we're not doing this product anymore. And you can say, that's my best seller. That's all my marketing gone. Then one level up is I'm now going to pay someone to manufacture their own product, but with my logo on it. Then I'm going to pay someone to manufacture my product and my patent. I'm going to give them the designs. They're going to make it to our spec. They'll be our manufacturer, which we can take that patent to somebody else and get them to start making it one day. That's absolutely fine. We're less risk. And then you've got the top one where you own all your own manufacturing and stock, and you have your own warehouse and stuff. And it's like you've almost gone from level 1 to level 4 and back to level 1. How much security do you guys have? Actually with the drop shipping model, like could your suppliers turn around and stop doing stuff, or have you guys become so secure with them? Do you have reassurances that you could get hold of the manufacturer directly if these guys weren't doing it? Or, you must have thought of these things over the years, looking at scalability going forwards.
Yeah, I mean, we treat our suppliers like they're our customers. It's the most important relationships that we have. So as long as we focus on what is good for us and them, and we're building solutions that benefit both parties, we're all in this together and we're all going to benefit. Since we had such a good history of growth, our suppliers obviously like us. We can grow faster than any of their current customers that they have. It's just a matter of doing that efficiently. So for us, it was just sitting down at the table and saying, here are the things that we're doing right. Here are the things that we got wrong. And how do we continue to build this together? And just treating it as a true partnership and a team. And I have the utmost confidence that by doing it that way and constantly thinking about what's good for us, what's good for them, and what's good for our consumer, we're not going to fail in terms of what we're creating. The only thing that really has saved us over the past couple of years are the quality of our relationships with our suppliers. We try and treat them just like a customer as much as absolutely possible. And it makes it fun for everyone. I think if you could do it that way, because the more successful we are, the better it is for them, the more people they can hire, the more money they make. And we're constantly assessing what we are really good at and what we're not good at. We're really looking at ourselves in a raw, kind of honest way. And I think the same thing with our suppliers. And then you start looking at that ecosystem and you find some opportunities for improvement or some loopholes and saying, all right, we need someone else on this team that is bringing things to the table that neither of us have. And I think that's the constant work. I think as a founder of a company is really looking at it from a really high level. And that's really the foundation for everything. And I'll talk just about something real briefly. It's a little bit of a tangent, but it's probably the most important thing that we do, which is in the beginning, I was having a conversation with my brother who is an executive in cybersecurity, and we were talking about strategy and what actually strategy is. What does that even mean? What is strategy for a company? And he broke it down really simply for me. And he said, all strategy are the things that you do every day. And so when we were spending time building the company and looking at what are the things that we can do, we saw, and he recommended, if you can do unique things, and the more unique things that you do that reinforce each other, and you basically build a web of unique things, then you're going to have a strategy that is extremely safe from a disruption standpoint, right? So an example is our suppliers have really high quality products, which makes us as an e-commerce company less risky in terms of it's going to show up, it's going to fail. We're not going to have to worry about customers being upset. By having really nice products, it also means that we can demand higher margins. It also means that people that we want to partner with in social are going to want to work with us better because they want to be associated with higher quality products. And then by having an e-commerce site, it allows us to take these high quality products and sell it to anyone, anywhere. We can be really efficient with it. We don't need a lot of people. And so when we think about all these little things that we're doing, they're unique. And if we put them all together, it really makes the foundation for everything that we're doing, to the point where I'm not super worried about someone else coming in and doing a few of the things that we're doing. Anyone can sell wood floors online, but not everyone can do all the things that we're doing. They basically would have to create the exact same company. And so it's a way to constantly look at our operations and say, what should we do? But also, really, the most important thing is, what shouldn't we do? What are the ramifications of us bringing in a product that maybe isn't as high quality? That means that we probably can't make and sell stair parts like we do today because the raw material isn't good enough. So it's really sobering questions you have to ask yourself, but really looking at it from a high level and saying no to specific things is one of the most powerful things that we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to a really interesting podcast a few weeks ago, actually, from Tony Robbins. He's obviously very well known. And he was saying that actually sometimes if you start thinking about the things I shouldn't do, you're left with the thing I should do. And that is a natural decision-making process. And I think one of the challenges is people don't have a process. It's just emotion. You just go with what you're thinking, which unfortunately for you and I in marketing, that's what we deal with on a daily basis. Is sometimes when you ask customers, why did you buy from us? They're like, I don't know. That's it. Like, I liked it. It was good, which is actually enough. That's all we need to know is I liked it. It's good enough. But yeah, I think I love the fact that you were talking about all those different unique elements. Obviously, where I'm getting at with the question about drop shipping to, owning your entire, we own a forest and we chop down our own trees and make the products all the way from there sort of thing. The reason I'm asking is about that, disruptive nature of what happens if one part of that chain breaks, what happens next. But as you say, actually investing in your suppliers, I think is incredibly important. I'd say that works across every supplier as well, whether it's your marketing suppliers, your finance suppliers. The more you invest in them and give them the time of day and let them understand what you're trying to achieve here and tell them the mission, the more they can help you achieve that goal. And I think there's certainly, I think if anyone's listening and you're an e-commerce store that just feels like you're chasing your tail a bit and just trying to keep afloat and keep up, A, we've all been through those seasons, that's fine. And B, you need to get out of that as fast as possible. And I think, as you say, that strategic web of all the things that are going on. So in terms of your suppliers, I guess this might sound like a really obvious question to you, but it probably won't be to most of our listeners. What are some of the ways you can invest more in your suppliers, apart from just taking them out for a drink and having more conversations? What are some of the ways you can actively work with a supplier to get more from them, to invest more in them, to build that relationship?
I mean, I just focus on what they're trying to accomplish in their business, what their goals are with their business, and then understanding truly, do we align? Do we fit into that? It really starts there. You can get down into the weeds all day long, but if we don't align with where they're going and what they're trying to do, and I can't prove to them how we can help them get there, it's just not a good fit. So that's really how it starts. And there's a bunch of other things that come after that, but that's the foundation for everything, really. Because that's ultimately, we're in a relationship, and if it's not working, if it's kind of based on these things that we haven't really talked about in a year or 2 years, it's just not going to work out. So we have to be pretty honest about where we're going. And if we are both heading in that direction, it's going to work, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as well, in terms of that relationship, even just picking up the phone to them every now and then and saying, we're about to do a massive marketing push. Yeah, we can't guarantee it, but expect some more orders. Even little things like that. I mean, you're not going to have any fulfillment issues now that you're going to have to deal with your customers, because they've had a heads up and they'll say, yeah, we'll make sure we're keeping an eye out for that. Or we've got a couple more people who can work in the warehouse tomorrow if you're doing a flash sale or whatever's going on. I guess that even that kind of, like you say, you can get bogged down in the weeds, and I think that is one of the things that can be down the line. But if you've got that same aligned goal, that communication, everything starts to flow anyway, because they should be asking you, like, how many orders should we expect this month? Are you doing anything specific that's going to affect the warehouse? And them asking you guys questions as well. Are things getting out on time? Are you happy with the service? Are the systems we're currently using, are they working? And it's great to sort of sit down and talk about communication, but I love that North Star you've just spoken about. That's the goals being aligned. So if your goal is you want to be able to get as many wood floors out to customers across the US and improve the way their homes look as much as possible, if that aligns with these guys going, we want to grow, but we want to grow with ethical businesses, and we don't want to just sell to anyone, it needs to be the right person, the right product, etc. They're not going to start pushing cheap products to you and putting pressure on you to sell them. They're going to focus on how do we do the thing we're both aligned to do. So yeah, I think it's an excellent philosophy. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think I think about it in systems. Anytime that we're doing something, we have to think about, how does that affect our warehouse? How does that affect either of our suppliers? How does that affect our partners on social? How does it affect, Ships a Lot? I mean, you have to think about the entire system, because that's just the nature of the business. And
Yeah.
if you're not thinking about it, something's going to break and it's going to cause a huge problem for someone.
Yeah.
And so, it's inevitable that that's going to happen. But the best thing you can do is just think about all the parties that you have, involvement with. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one thing that we've done,
it's a chain, isn't it? It's like it goes from like the customer's found you to now an order needs to go out to, there's been a problem. Who do they phone and who needs to deal with that problem? And if they phone you, how does that reach the warehouse to know to expect a product back, or they need to go and pick it up, or they need to send some more out for whatever reason? It's got to be that whole chain of command, hasn't it? And that almost like a cycle of everyone gets paid, but we need to make sure we deliver. And if we don't deliver, we need to make sure we have a system between all of us to fix it at any point.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I think that's the beauty and the fun of it. That's where I get the most satisfaction, is thinking about all of the parties that are involved and how we can build and create something that works for everyone. And that's, that canvas that we can put some art on a daily basis and really try and create something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, I think it goes without saying, based on what we're talking about here, that if you guys are listening at home and it's like you're just logging into a system and ordering products in, now's probably the time to pick up the phone and say, can we have a chat? Can we have a meeting? I've never met you guys. Or whereabouts are you based? Can we, quite a few of our clients, their products are made in India, in China, in Vietnam, in different parts around the world, in South Africa. A lot of the ones that are more successful, they go out to those places and meet them. And I know it might seem like a huge trip, but it also makes business quite fun, going out and actually seeing these people. And you've mentioned you lived in Sweden for a long time, so talk about the connections you've got, actually living and working within a supplier of what you're selling. I think it's really powerful. But yeah, certainly if you're sitting there and you're doing drop shipping or something on your little Shopify store at the moment, reach out to your suppliers and talk to them and find out, what's on the roadmap, what can you do to support them, what can they do to support you. I can't imagine anyone's going to say, well, that was a waste of time, because without them, there's no you, and without you, there's no them. So it's got to work both ways.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Nice. I want to come on to one possibly final topic. We might find something else in this as well. But we were saying just before we start recording, Marc, about how some of our guests before, some merchants I've spoken to, some of them end up in a situation where they've got no stock, but they still need to make revenue because they still have business costs. And you said, that's an interesting topic. Have you guys ever been in that sort of situation, or are there situations where you guys have looked into actually revenue you can drive through your Shopify store without necessarily having or selling stock in that particular moment?
Yeah, it happens a lot, I think, for us with our product, because it's to produce our hardwood floor just takes so long. And the planning for quantities happens months and months before it's produced. So if we start to see a product take off, we can't just tell production to make more of it, right? Yeah. It's already been in the works for months. And so we're constantly running out of products. We still take orders on products that are oversold, and we try and be very open and honest with our customers about when they can receive that order. So if a floor is sold out, until mid-June, we let them know. Yeah. That's about all we can do from that standpoint. But the other thing that we've actually done, I think, which has been really fun and interesting work, is knowing that it's going to happen all the time. And we can either try and prevent it, which is swimming upstream, or we can embrace it and say, well, what happens when this product sells out? What other product can we substitute in really fast? Yep. Throw it in the sample box of the customer, give them a call, let them know, hey, that product sold out. I know you ordered it. You might not be able to wait 3 months, but we're going to put another one in the box for you. That's almost identical. It's great in all these different ways. And when you get it, let me know what you think, because it's available. Yep. And so we have this kind of anti-fragility idea. Like, no matter what happens with supply, we always have something that we can sell. We can plug and play and swap out things on the site really easily. We have different suppliers that we can work with. Because at the end of the day, we're not a product, we're a shopping experience. It took us a while to really figure that out. But if we truly think of us as a shopping experience, it reduces our risk. We're really not focused on a product specifically. It's just more of selling a floor. And there's a lot of different floors that are out there for customers. And so I think really being flexible and having some things kind of in our back pocket when supply does go wrong. Because there's not a whole lot you can do when you're selling out of something and it's just offering something else basically. But I think just having some customer care around that too, and letting customers know it's, they can't get it when they need it. Here's when you can get it. What do you think about that? And having an actual conversation around that with some people. Our customers are spending on average $11,000, $12,000 per cart. So it's it's a lot, and there's a lot of trust that needs to happen throughout the buying process. And so, us picking up the phone and talking to them goes just so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you come back to something we were talking loads about in March with Tidio, which was customer service, and it's talking to your customers. And one of the biggest things that was basically said every single week, we did 5 weeks in March on this, every single week it was talking about that customer service doesn't start when the customer has a problem, if you're doing it correctly. It starts the moment they hear the name of your business. So customer support and customer success, that can start when somebody first hears the name of your company from their neighbor who's just bought a floor from you and had their floor done. And they go, "This is beautiful. How do I get one of these?" And they sort of say, "Well, you need to talk to these guys." That's when customer service starts. So in that conversation, you also need them to say, "Yeah, I had loads of questions actually." So I phoned them up. And they were really helpful. They answered the phone immediately. There was no hold music. Didn't have to wait in a queue. And as you said earlier, you phone the 800 number and somebody answers. That's customer service. And now it's gone full circle to the referral onto the next person. And we know how powerful referrals can be. But right the way through the process to then somebody, as we're talking about now, you've not got the stock, you can't fulfill the order. But I think the most important thing that she said right at the end there is having that conversation with somebody. And that shows product knowledge, which in a way builds more trust than if you had just fulfilled the correct order in the first place because you had it. Builds that relationship, which now means you're front and center of mind, that when someone else says, "Oh, how's the house renovation going?" you say, "Well, actually, we've just had an issue with the floor, but look at this floor we've got now. It's actually a bit better. I prefer it. I spoke to someone on the phone, which I wasn't planning to do." And it all starts to build that journey.
And it's something, too, it makes me think about, because I know you asked before we got on the podcast, which was, how do you think about selection? How do you think about choice with the customer? How do you think about what type of products you want to carry? And, our job is to simplify the shopping experience. So we're a curator. Our job is to look at the hundreds and hundreds of products that are out there and decide what we think is the best. And then that's what we put on the site. Even when we have all these other substitutes that we can make when products are sold out, we're still very intentional about what we're putting on the site. We don't want to overwhelm customers with choice. We don't want to overwhelm them with technical features because none of it matters. None of it makes sense. So that's our job on the back end, to do all that and create the systems that we can manage it. And that's where fulfillment partners like Shipsalot comes in. How do we have all these other products that we can ship to a customer in the drop of a hat that they don't even know about? And so that's the back end systems that make operations work really well, but still having this kind of true north of who we are, what we're doing, what the customer wants, and never really veering away from that. And keeping a very small curated product mix on the site is critical to our success for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with floors as well, it can be so confusing. So I think having a smaller product range, it sounds obvious and makes a lot of sense. But as you said earlier, you must have been tempted to just go complete kind of, flooringwarehouse.com type approach and just have every floor you can. But it sounds like you guys, part of your mission and part of the DNA of the business, obviously, is to be, as you say, be the curator and have that small sample range of, actually, we only do these ones because they're the best. If you want something else, give us a call. But these are the ones we do, and we'll probably guide you towards one of these. And maybe you've not taken the time to read. If you're anything like me, I wouldn't have taken the time to read the content on the website. I'd much rather pick up the phone and go, right, I've got 30 questions. Can I just shoot? Yeah, crack on. Ask me what you need.
Yeah, fulfillment and shipping and everything is way easier when you're dealing with a small amount of products. And, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if we were carrying 150 SKUs. I don't know how we would do it. There's companies out there that do it, and that's their specialty, and they do that really well, and that is not us.
Yeah. Nice. Well, look, Marc, we're almost out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure having the show today. Before we jump off, how can people reach out? How can they find your store? What's the domain? You guys active on social? How can people get in touch?
Yeah, our website, stugastudio.com, same on Instagram. Go on the site, order free samples, pick up the phone, give us a call, we'll answer, shoot us an email, we'll answer. But we're always accessible, pretty easy to find. And pretty active on social. We love hearing from people. Love it when they buy floors and tag us. We love sharing that content. We sell beautiful products and we want people to appreciate it. So.
Lovely stuff. Nice. And Stuga as well. If you're now on Google trying to work out how to spell it, it's Stuga. So Stuga.
Yeah, Stuga. It's a Swedish word for cottage.
We forgot to get that in there, but yes, absolutely. Sorry, you were telling me just before we started. Yeah, it's Swedish word for cottage, which is awesome. But yeah, Marc, look, massive thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for everything you shared with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
Great stuff. And for everybody listening, back again next week. Next week's, I think, our last episode on talking about fulfillment and talking about warehousing and all the operational stuff in the back end as well. So make sure you check that out. If you didn't already, then check out the first episode from this month in May, where we interviewed Ships a lot and spoke about their system and how it all plugs together. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Leave us a review if you've also not done that yet. And if you've done all of the above, homework is complete. See you next week, and thanks for tuning in.